Howdy y'all, name's Clover. Recently I made a video essay talking about my journey to Twitch partner, and y'all absolutely flooded me with feedback. Not just with support and gratitude, but also a lot of thought-provoking questions and discussions. It's got my brain a-buzzing, so I want to sit down and take time to properly sort through everything one by one. Many of y'all been asking how to grow your channel, how to manage your time, and how to make content that really stands out. And the more I see y'all discussing topics, the more I want to organize all those talking points into a clear-cut series. Now I want to make something clear about this. This ain't gonna be some kind of fancy follow these steps and you'll go viral type of thing. I ain't here to load you up with gimmicks or any kind of empty promises. What I want to focus on are the real attainable skills that any creator can learn, no matter where they are in their journey. So whether you're just starting out or you've been at this for years, I want this to be a place that anyone can feel comfortable learning and discussing content creator strategies. And if at any point you need me to break something down further or there's a concept that just don't quite click, well, be sure to speak up and talk about it, because chances are you ain't the only one with the same question. Now, there's a lot of topics on my radar to discuss, but I'm going to take my time gathering as much info as I can on every single one. And I felt like the best place to start was with editing, since it was so highly requested. So, on that note, this video is going to be focused on just that, or rather, how to utilize editing strategies to enhance your content. I really want to stress that this ain't a tutorial on literally how to use editing software. If you've never used any editing software before, I would suggest looking into a software that feels right for you first, and then come back to this video. Because what this video is going to be, it's going to serve as a guide on how to utilize editing software to take your content to the next level. We're here to learn how to think about editing in a way that enhances our content. So whether you're brand new or you're refining your craft, this is about building a mindset that makes your edits intentional and impactful. So that brings us to this question. What actually makes a video well edited? There's a common misconception that the secret to good editing is layering on flashy effects, big transitions, exaggerated overlays, or lots of dramatic sound effects. And sure, those can be fun when used with a purpose, but they don't actually make a video better. In fact, too many effects can take away from the content itself, making things feel cluttered and overwhelming and just really not so fun to engage with. The real power of editing ain't in the bells and whistles, but in how you shape the moment to make it clearer, stronger, and more intentional. Fancy effects ain't enough to hold no one's attention, but good storytelling is. If a viewer don't immediately understand what's going on in your clip, no amount of flashy effects are going to save it. That's why great editing is about guiding the focus so everything is working together towards one clear goal. So, if big effects ain't what make a video strong, then what is? A well-edited video is one that guides the audience's focus towards the themes and the goals of the moment. Every single cut, crop, and text overlay should be reinforcing what the audience needs to pay attention to. If it's a reaction clip, your framing should highlight your facial expressions. If it's a story-driven moment, your pacing should build tension in the same way that a good book would. When editing, always ask yourself this: what is the viewer supposed to take away from this? The goal isn't just to make the clip look clean, it's to make it easy to follow. The best edits are the ones that feel seamless, where the audience can follow along naturally, without ever even thinking about the fact that it was edited. Let's put this into practice. Let's say we've got a hilarious moment from stream. Maybe someone in chat said something goofy and you just done went off about it. It's comedy gold, but when you pull up the clip, you realize a couple things. Well, one, you're sitting on the pause screen of a game and not actually playing nothing. So your camera is in the corner, small, because again, we're on our gameplay screen. The pacing is a little off because halfway through the moment, you gotta follow, so you pause to say hello to that new follower. And the context of why you're talking about this may feel a bit obscure to a new audience. Now, for you, of course, the clip makes perfect sense. You remember the context, you know you were talking to chat, but for someone new, it could be kind of confusing. What is the focus? What's happening? Why is the gameplay paused? What is that pop-up and jingle going on in the middle of the moment? This is where editing works its magic. This is where we begin shaping the clip so that the moment is as clear as possible. A new viewer don't have all the full context of your streams, so their brain is going to grab onto whatever seems visually important first. If the biggest thing on your screen is the pause menu, they may just assume that that's the point of the clip, even though it has actually nothing to do with what you're talking about. There's also the follow alert going off in the middle that breaks up the moment. Since it interrupts the flow, the viewer may think that this is the focus of the clip since it happened so abruptly that it feels like it was intentionally placed. They may find it confusing who you're talking to if they've never been to a live stream before, or they don't know how or where to identify the on-screen chat. So the context of what you're talking about may fall short since they're missing that original message. All this means is that we need to reconstruct the visual hierarchy, bringing attention to what matters the most and cutting out the rest of anything that's unnecessary. This ain't about fixing the clip, because in truth, the clip itself is great, but it's about clarifying it so that everyone who sees it the way it's intended. So let's break down the exact step-by-step process that I use to edit my content. This is going to include how I identify distractions, enhance engagement, and trim things down for better pacing. The first thing I always do is frame the clip so that it removes anything that don't visually serve the moment. That means cropping out distractions and unnecessary elements to make sure that the final clip keeps the audience attention locked in. When you pull a raw clip from stream, chances are it's got a bunch of extra stuff that ain't adding to the content. For example, if we take this funny moment that was sparked by a chat message, right now we're sitting on a pause screen, and it takes up the majority of the frame. And our camera is so small off into the corner that you can hardly see us even over there. While the setup works fine in a live stream environment, it don't really translate well in short form content. The audience should immediately recognize where the focus of the clip is. If they have to stop and try to figure it out, we've already lost their engagement. Anything that competes with the key moments of the clip have got to go. This means the pause menu, it could mean extra UI elements or unrelated overlays, things like that. By trimming away any distractions, we make sure that the viewer knows exactly where to look and what to focus on. One of the ways to do this is by adjusting the framing. Think of editing like setting the stage for a movie. The main subject should be placed intentionally so that the audience's attention naturally flows to what's most important. If a clip feels cluttered or unfocused, the viewer's brain has to work that much harder to try to process what's happening, and we don't want that. Even after cropping and reframing, we gotta make sure nothing essential gets covered up when posting. Different platforms have UI overlays that can block parts of the video. If we try to place a chat message too close to the bottom of the frame, for example, it may get blocked out by the description box on YouTube or TikTok. That would make things real difficult for the viewers to follow along. To avoid this, we'll want to stick to a format similar to this image here. That way, you can keep things like the follow, like, comment buttons, and any other UI elements from cutting off important visuals. Not only that, but different phones end up also having different resolutions for short-form platforms, so keeping a healthy padding around the borders of your video gives it a better chance at not having the focus of your video unintentionally chopped off. Just by cropping out those distractions and adjusting the framing, we've already made the clip way more engaging. But we can keep pushing this a bit further. As we know, short-form viewers don't have the same real-time context as stream viewers. So if a joke or reaction is triggered by a comment, they may not immediately get that unless we highlight that interaction properly. In our example, the whole moment started because of something funny a viewer said in chat. That means chat interaction is a core part of the moment. But right now, it really ain't all that obvious. If the viewer has to guess why you suddenly launched into a tangent, but chances are they're going to scroll. But if we highlight the message that kicked everything off, either by overlaying it clearly or putting some text in there so that folks can see, that helps provide context and clarity as to why the moment is happening. This does two very powerful things as well. It reinforces that you're engaged and interactive with your community, and it also helps non-stream viewers understand that your content involves responding to a live chat. Folks love feeling like they're a part of the conversation, and featuring chat messages makes folks feel like they're more connected to the content, even if they weren't there for the live stream. And as a bonus, highlighting chat helps showcase the community experience. When you post stream highlights, you ain't just sharing your own content, but you're also sharing the energy of the folks who support you. By featuring a viewer's comment, you turn them into an active part of your content, making the moment feel more alive, connected, and engaged. Folks who recognize the value of this type of interaction are now more likely to comment and engage with your future posts, because they see that connections and conversations actually matter to you. At this point, I like to trim out the excess dialogue, cut out interruptions, and make sure every word flows smoothly. This part of editing is all about pacing. We want to make sure that the clip moves in a natural, engaging rhythm that keeps the audience hooked from start to finish. So in our example, halfway through our clip, a follow alert pops up on screen. Naturally, we pause for a moment to thank the new follower, welcome them into the community, and so on. Now, on stream, this is a fantastic thing to do. It's part of being an engaging and interactive creator. But in edited content, that moment breaks up the pacing completely. The audience is here for your story or your joke or whatever moment's happening in the clip. And that sudden detour into welcoming a follower pulls them out of that moment. By cutting out that brief interaction, we ensure that the clip stays focused on the story we're telling rather than drifting on to unrelated engagement moments. Stream etiquette and edited content play by two completely different rule sets. Our job in editing is to keep each clip as tight and purposeful as possible. Another important thing to watch out for in editing is the pacing within the dialogue. In a live stream environment, naturally we're going to have pauses and moments of thinking because we're responding in real time. We're processing our thoughts and reacting to chat. But in short form content, long pauses can drain energy, and it makes the moment feel rather sluggish and disconnected. If our moment has big pauses between sentences, we should spend time trimming those down so that the clip feels snappy and intentional. Same goes for repeated phrases. If we find ourselves saying the same thought more than once, cutting one of those out gives us a nice steady pacing. The goal is to make sure every single word is pushing the clip forward rather than looping back or dragging on. Think about it like this. Every second of short-form video is valuable real estate. If too many slow moments stack up, viewers will start to lose interest and scroll away. Keeping things fluid and engaging ensures that audience stays locked in. And while we're trimming up those interruptions and cleaning up the pacing, we kind of have to make a decision for ourselves. How long should our final clip actually be? Most short-form viewers prefer content that's under 30 seconds. So if we can trim everything down to be a nice, concise moment, then it will often perform the best. But some moments have a natural storytelling arc, and they thrive in slightly longer format. In cases like those, it's okay to have that build-up and comedic pauses so long as it works with the general pacing of the video. If you can get the point across quickly, aim for 10 to 30 seconds. That way you have higher retention and engagement. However, if it's got strong build-up or emotional arcs, it's okay to let it breathe a little bit longer. Just make sure that every second counts. It's about refining the pacing to match the energy of the moment so it feels natural, yet engaging. The video's already solid the way it is, but if we want to fill in that empty space around where we've cropped, then here's a few simple ways we can go about it. Rather than leaving that space completely blank, we could add some background elements that subtly reinforce the moment without competing for attention. There's a couple techniques that we can do to help polish this final look. One option, it's a very popular one, is by using a blurred version of the video as the background. With this route, what we would do is take the full-size clip, duplicate it, add a Gaussian blur to it, and layer it behind the main content. This keeps the focus locked onto the subject while also adding a nice clean professional touch to the background. An approach that I personally enjoy using is by adding my chat overlay to the background. Keeping live chat visible in the background is a great way to showcase community involvement without pulling attention away from the main reaction. You can also use static imagery as a background to add depth without any movement. This works for stylized edits, or when you want a clear, constant backdrop that doesn't compete with the focal point of the video. Whether it's a subtle texture, a themed frame, or an image relevant to the discussion, static visuals can enhance the aesthetic without introducing unnecessary distractions. None of these effects are required, of course, but when used intentionally, they can help add depth and polish your edits while keeping the core content clear. Background elements should sit in the background. They're not there to overpower the main content, they should just feel like an immersive part of your video. For example, if we're adding chat as the background layer, we don't want it to be a bright white text or anything that's going to be fighting for attention. So typically what I like to do is apply a dark filter over top of it. This keeps the main focus bright and centered while letting viewers get a sense of the live atmosphere without it feeling cluttered or overwhelming. This is the same logic that movies and TV shows use. If there's too much detail in the background, it pulls the audience attention away from what they're supposed to be focusing on. So if we add a background, it should feel intentional, supportive, and non-distracting. But a strong edit ain't just about what you see, it's also about what you hear. Audio mixing is an area that's pretty easy to slip up on. In reality, bad audio balance can tank a clip's engagement, making dialogue difficult to hear or music too distracting from the actual moment. So let's talk about ways we can make sure your clip sounds as clean as it looks. When balancing audio in an edit, a small adjustment can make a huge difference in clarity and engagement. Music plays an important role in setting tone and energy, but we want to make sure it supports the dialogue rather than competing with it. A great way to refine the mix is by adjusting the music volumes so that it sits comfortably beneath your voice. This is to make sure that our speech remains clear while still keeping the music track audible. If you want more control, you can use manual mixing or volume keyframes. This allows you to soften the music when the speech happens and then bring it back up during pauses or transitions. This method helps ensure that the flow feels natural and intentional. Best sound mixes feel effortless. Viewers shouldn't even notice that there's been any adjustments. They'll just experience the moment smoothly and naturally. And while you're balancing your music, your voice should stay clear and crisp in the final mix. It's the heart of the moment, and we want every single word to make sure they come through. If the audio is too quiet, muffled, or competing with background noise, it's just not going to hit as effectively. A great way to refine clarity is by taking a close look at the sound waves and smoothing out the peaks and dips in volume. Consistent speech levels ensure that every word comes through cleanly, naturally, and helps keep that engagement nice and high. If there's background noise bleeding in from the stream, we could use some noise reduction tools to help keep that voice track isolated and sharp. This makes sure that the focus stays on the moment itself rather than any unwanted background noises. But here's the thing. If you're noticing that your mic quality itself might be holding things back, then now might be a good time to start exploring ways to refine your setup. While post-processing tools can be incredibly helpful, learning what filters and compression settings work best for your hardware will make a huge difference in the long run, so I highly suggest that you start setting things up for stronger quality right from the start. But sound design ain't just about adjusted volume, it's also about choosing the right music to match the energy of the moment. Music helps set the tone of the video. The wrong choice can make a moment feel off, while the right one reinforces the vibe effortlessly. So let's figure out how to pick a track that works with your content and not against it. Since the clip we're working on has high energy and comedic timing, we know that if we add slow, dramatic music, it won't match up the energy of the moment. It'll make it feel disjointed and awkward. But if we use something upbeat, playful, or even a light rhythmic track, it'll help support the pacing and make the clip feel more engaging. So when picking out music, you kind of have to ask yourself a couple questions. Does this track reinforce the emotions of the moment? Does it complement the pacing of your speech? And does it enhance the engagement without distracting? If the song don't match the tone of your clip, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and so it's going to end up pulling those viewers out of the experience instead of drawing them in. Quite literally, it will ruin the immersion of the moment. In general, it's best to avoid using tracks with strong vocals behind any video with spoken dialogue. This is because lyrics in the background music can end up clashing with your yapping, if you get what I'm saying. This makes it harder for viewers to focus on what's actually being said. If there's too many voices layered all at once, the brain has to work super hard to process all the sounds and can make the clip feel really distracting and kind of difficult to pay attention to. The best way to avoid this issue is to just stick with instrumental tracks. But if you really want to use a track with lyrics, you'll want to make sure the words don't overlap with any key spoken moments. And also be sure to lower your background music just enough so it supports the scene, but don't compete with your speech. At the end of the day, background music should be felt by the audience, not something that they really particularly pay attention to. And on the topic of audio mixing, there's another layer to sound choices that plays a surprisingly big role in reach and audience retention, and that is censoring explicit language. Now, this ain't about sanitizing your personality or removing the natural way that you talk. It's about making sure your content performs well with every single platform without any unnecessary limits. Social media platforms don't particularly like explicit language. Even if a clip is hilarious, profanity can get your content flagged by the moderation system in an algorithm, leading to lower reach and less engagement. This don't mean you gotta change the way you talk, it just means we gotta be smart about our censoring. That way your content can perform better while still keeping true to your own personality. Many top creators intentionally bleep out their curse words. That way they can avoid getting flagged while also keeping the comedic timing intact. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts tend to favor content that's accessible to a wide range of audiences. This means softening harsh language can actually boost your discoverability. This is especially helpful if you're trying to monetize your clips too. One common concern with censoring profanity is that it may ruin the comedic timing or make something feel a little awkward. But when done intentionally, censorship can actually enhance the humor of the moment. So instead of just muting or cutting out the word, you could lean into the edit and use a funny sound effect to make the censorship part of the joke. Take the classic sound for example. It's simple, but effective, and it gives the audience just enough of the word shape without actually needing to hear it. And sometimes, it actually makes the clip that much funnier. But if you want something a little more playful, there's plenty of options to go with. Animal noises or silly sound effects can make the moment go from a simple cut to a full comedic beat. And if you're going for something more stylized, a game effect or something from a TV show can give that moment that specific tone, something exaggerated or cinematic or even just completely absurd. The goal here isn't just censoring, but keeping the timing intact so that delivery feels natural. A well-placed sound effect will make sure that the joke lands exactly as intended without losing the energy or the pacing that makes it fun. So at this point, really the only other thing that it needs now is subtitles, which is something that I always do last. However, in this stage of editing, if you've got a little extra time or you want to add some extra personality to the edit, there are a few simple techniques that you can use to enhance engagement without making the edit feel overly complicated. Let me be clear about this. Heavy editing ain't necessary to make great content. These are just some extra steps that aren't really required for the clip to perform well, but if you enjoy refining the details or want to elevate certain moments, these methods will help do that effectively. One of the simplest ways to add a little extra flair to an edit without making it feel overproduced is by using zooms. Quite simply, just zooming in and zooming out. Well-timed zoom can help spice up a moment, making it land with a little more emphasis and pizzazz. If a reaction is particularly dramatic or funny, a quick zoom in helps lock in that energy, pulling focus into exaggerated facial expressions or making an emotional beat hit just that much harder. It's a subtle touch, but it guides the viewer's attention exactly where you want it to be. Likewise, a zoom out can work just as well for comedic timing, pulling back at just the right moment to reinforce any kind of awkwardness or maybe some irony or even a "what just happened?" kind of energy. It adds space to the moment, sometimes quite literally, but also in a way that feels intentional. When used with intent and purpose, zooms can help reinforce the energy, clarity, and pacing of a moment. Also, sometimes it's just real funny to look at. Adding subtle visual effects can also help reinforce the energy and tone of a moment. Different effects can help accentuate parts of your videos. Shake effects, for example, are perfect for heightening intensity, whether it's a loud reaction or a dramatic realization or even some sort of comedic outburst of chaos. That small detail reinforces how the moment feels and makes it more immersive to the audience. Likewise, filters can help change the tone of a scene. A black and white filter, for example, instantly makes a moment feel over-the-top dramatic, whether it's meant to be serious or sarcastic. A high saturation boost can also add energy to an already chaotic clip, making it visually pop. Even slight color shifts can help create a mood, like a sudden blue tint for a realization moment, or a warm glow for something nostalgic. Another great way to enhance engagement is by adding supporting visuals for context, especially when discussing something that may not be universally recognizable. Take something as simple as talking about the best flavor of chips. Depending on where you're from, chips could mean tater chips, fries, or maybe something entirely different. And even if you're talking about a specific brand, not everyone may know exactly what that looks like. A small image of the bag on screen instantly clears up any confusion, making sure the audience knows what's being discussed without needing any extra explanation. It also makes the clip more engaging, especially for viewers outside your usual audience who may be unfamiliar with the reference. This trick works for a ton of different topics, whether it's food discussions, pop culture references, or just about any other subject that could benefit from a little visual reinforcement. Simple images go a long way in making sure that every viewer stays connected to the moment without missing any key details. And just as all these things help visually reinforce our moment, we can also use sound effects to make the moment more engaging too. Using things like a whoosh sound between cuts keeps transitions feeling snappy and energetic. If a reaction is over the top, maybe something like a little cartoon pop or dramatic sting can exaggerate the moment, pushing the humor just a little bit further. Personally, sound effects are a flair I use the least, but I still recommend them to anyone that wants to experiment with adding creative sound design to their content. While all the things that we've done so far have helped greatly improve our clip, the next step is arguably the most important step. If you do nothing else we talked about in this video, this right here is the one key thing that absolutely cannot be skipped if we want maximum engagement. And that thing is subtitles. Now, subtitles might feel like a small detail, but they make an enormous difference in both watch time and accessibility. So let's talk about why they matter, how to add them easily, and how they can boost your content's performance. Subtitles are one of the simplest ways to make your videos clearer, more engaging, and more accessible for everyone. They don't just help specific audiences, they enhance comprehension and retention for all viewers, ensuring every word and reaction lands exactly as you intended. Viewers are more likely to stay engaged with videos that have subtitles because they help them follow along even when the sound is turned off. They sharpen communication between you and the audience, making sure that the jokes, reactions, and storytelling land with full impact. Plus, they make your content more accessible to all audiences, whether they're hard of hearing, a non-native speaker, or simply didn't catch what you were saying. Bottom line is, if your clip has dialogue, subtitles are always worth adding on. Even simple ones can make a huge difference. And luckily, subtitles don't have to be a hassle either. Most modern editing tools make it quick and painless. Editing softwares like CapCut and Premiere Pro have subtitle tools that quickly and easily create captions for you. Even the free version of DaVinci Resolve has a plugin called Snap Captions that will help you get set up real quick. The best method depends on how much control you want. If you just want something that's fast and readable, automated captions work great. If you want something more stylized though, with text effects and things like that, manual editing gives you more flexibility. Subtitles work best when they're clear, well-timed, and non-distracting, reinforcing the context rather than pulling the focus away. So we want to choose bold, easy-to-read fonts, especially something that's going to complement your branding. That way the subtitles feel cohesive and not so much like an afterthought. Timing matters just as much as readability. Subtitles should appear naturally with the speech, syncing with the dialogue so they don't feel too awkward or delayed or maybe too rushed. We also want to be mindful of our own placement. Keeping text away from the edges of the screen prevents it from getting blocked by the platform UI elements. We want to make sure that every word stays visible and easy to follow. Some creators add extra emphasis by using highlighting effects or animated captions, especially for comedic moments or key phrases. While none of that is actually necessary, these small touches can help draw attention to specific moments, making the delivery even sharper without cluttering the edit. Editing can be a powerful storytelling tool, but at the end of the day, what matters most is making sure that your content still feels true to you. You don't need fancy effects or overly complicated edits, you just need an approach that helps your moments land clearly and engage with your audience. And, like I always say, this is just my approach to editing. There really is no such thing as one true right or wrong way to do things. If you've got a different workflow or unique techniques, I'd love to hear about them and discuss. So, what are your favorite editing techniques? And if you made it this far, thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.